Thank you, Ellen. Now, at this point, I get to share some thoughts with you tonight. And after I'm done, we'll move towards the conclusion of our service for tonight. I think about good topics to talk about on Yom Kippur all year long, and I jot them down in my notebook. And then I throw them away because life happens. So tonight I want to talk about the memory of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. When moral giants depart from the world, we call them tzaddikim, tzaddikot, they leave a legacy of inspiration for us. This year, we Americans lost two moral giants. Congressman John Lewis this past July, and Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on Erev Rosh Hashanah just 9 days ago. Their lives, what they stood for, their accomplishments, and their personal bearing can be our guideposts, our North Star, by which we might navigate towards a better world. Tomorrow, I'll share some inspirational words of John Lewis as we honor his memory and take courage from his example. Tonight, I want to honor and take inspiration and strength from the life and work of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You may know that in Jewish practice, when one hears of a death, the first thing one is supposed to utter is Baruch Dayan Emet, which means blessed is the true judge. That is meant to refer to the Holy One, giver of life and of death. But when we learned of RBG's passing, as Gwen Tapper told me, Baruch Dayan Emet took on a whole new meaning, as if we were saying it about Justice Ginsburg. Blessed is Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Dayan Emet, the judge of truth. You know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg reminds me a lot of my own mom of blessed memory. I can't stop thinking about it. Born in Brooklyn during the Depression, children of immigrants, brilliant and determined, not interested in cooking, giving it up, in fact, at the earliest opportunity as they pursued groundbreaking professional careers. As I have pored over Ruth Bader Ginsburg's tributes and her speeches and interviews, I have felt like I am with my mishpacha, my kin. I know I'm not alone in this experience. Bret Stephens, who is a Jewish op-ed writer for the New York Times, commented after Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death. He said, "I never got to personally meet her, but I get the impression that Ginsburg was a lot like so many Jewish women I grew up around, particularly of her generation, which is basically a sum consisting of 1, intimidating brilliance, plus 2, unyielding hatred of injustice, plus 3, you're too skinny, didn't anyone feed you lunch?" But Ginsburg really was a Jewish American hero, or a shiro, as I learned from my friend Kim Harris. Think about this. This past Friday, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was the first Jew and the first woman to ever lie in state in the Capitol Rotunda. Talk about shattering glass ceilings. So how did RBG change the world? She was known as the Thurgood Marshall of women's rights. Thurgood Marshall became a lawyer and then developed a systematic, long-game plan to prove that separate but equal treatment of the races, that is, legal segregation, was unconstitutional. His efforts culminated in Brown versus the Board of Education, and with that decision, the legal constructs enforcing segregation came tumbling down, allowing the work of desegregation to move forward. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, brilliant and determined, took upon herself the same kind of strategy to prove the unconstitutionality of any discrimination based on gender. She chose her cases patiently and carefully and systematically built a legal foundation that would change forever the way our society understands equality under the law. And it is important to remember that she accomplished this with, as it were, one hand tied behind her back. After graduating first in her class from Columbia Law School, she was unable to get a job in any New York City law firm. As she recalled, I had 3 strikes against me. 1, I was Jewish. 2, I was a woman. But the killer was that I was the mother of a 4-year-old child. This was a time in many of our living memories when women could not get a credit card, could not sign on a mortgage. They could be fired for wearing slacks. We've come a long way, thank God, thanks to Ruth Bader Ginsburg and millions of other determined activists for equality, I'm sure many of whom are in this Zoom room tonight. But where did Ruth Bader Ginsburg derive her passion for justice? Well, in an address at the United States Holocaust Museum, she spoke about how Judaism and Jewish heritage had shaped her. I quote, "My heritage as a Jew and my occupation as a judge fit together symmetrically. The demand for justice runs through the entirety of Jewish history and Jewish tradition. I take pride in and draw strength from my heritage, as signs in my chambers attest. A large silver mezuzah on my doorpost, a gift from the Shulamit School for Girls in Brooklyn. And on 3 walls, in artists' renditions of Hebrew letters, the command from Deuteronomy, Tzedek, Tzedek Tirdof, justice, justice shall you pursue. Those words are ever-present reminders of what judges must do that they may thrive, as the Torah says. On 3 walls of her chambers." Justice Ginsburg continues, "The Passover story we retell is replete with miracles. But unlike our ancestors in their exodus from Egypt, our way is unlikely to be advanced by miraculous occurrences. In striving to drain dry the waters of prejudice and oppression, we must rely on measures of our own creation, upon the wisdom of our laws and the decency of our institutions, upon our reasoning minds and our feeling hearts, and as a constant spark to carry on, upon our vivid memories of the evils we wish to banish from our world. In our long struggle for a more just world, our memories are among our most powerful resources." End quote. I watched Justice Ginsburg's funeral ceremony on TV, held in the arching lobby of the United States Supreme Court building. In attendance were RBG's fellow justices and her own family members. Rabbi Lauren Holtzblatt of Congregation Adas Israel of Washington, D.C. officiated. And I want to quote at length from her eulogy. "To be born into a world that does not see you, that does not believe in your potential, that does not give you a path for opportunity or a clear path for education, and despite this, to be able to see beyond the world you are in, to imagine that something can be different, that is the job of a prophet. And it is the rare prophet who not only imagines a new world, but also makes that new world a reality in her lifetime. This was the brilliance and vision of Ruth Bader Ginsburg." Rabbi Holtzblatt continues, "The Torah is relentless in reminding, in instructing, in commanding that we never forget those who live in the shadows, those whose freedom and opportunity are not guaranteed. 36 times we are taught that we must never forget the stranger. 12 times we are told to care for the widow and the orphan. This is one of the most important commands in the Torah. It is the Torah's call to action. And it is also the promise written into our Constitution. As Justice Ginsburg said, and I quote, "Think back to 1787. Who were we, the people? They certainly weren't women. They surely weren't people held in human bondage. The genius of our Constitution is that now, over more than 200 sometimes turbulent years, that we has expanded and expanded." End quote. This was Justice Ginsburg's life work, to insist that the Constitution deliver on its promise, that we the people would include all the people. Nothing could stop Justice Ginsburg's unflagging devotion to this project, not even cancer. And Rabbi Holtzblatt concludes, Justice Ginsburg, midor ledor, from generation to generation, we promise to carry forward your legacy. May you rest under the wings of the Shekhinah. Then, Rabbi Holtzblatt chanted the El Malei Rachamim, and the sounds of Hebrew echoed off the walls of the Supreme Court. Here are some lessons that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life and example can offer to us. These thoughts are in no way intended to be exhaustive, and in fact, I hope you will add your own life lessons. First of all, it doesn't matter what kind of package you come in. RBG was 5'1" and 100 pounds if she remembered to eat. She was soft-spoken and reserved, and yet she was a giant. Our inner qualities outshine our outward size or appearance. Secondly, the ethical imperatives of the Torah and of the United States Constitution inform and strengthen each other. Being an American and a Jew can be an inspiring and empowering combination if we take these values fully to heart. Thirdly, as Reb Zushya taught, when he got stuck, despairing because he was comparing himself to Moses, Zushya said, I get it. God doesn't want you to be more like Moses. God wants you to be more like Zushya. God doesn't want you to be more like Moses. God wants you to be more of yourself. So let's not compare your accomplishments or my accomplishments to RBG's and then despair. For every person truly has their own calling, their own circumstances, and their own challenges. Most lives are not lived in the public eye. Yet we can also feel ennobled by our quiet contributions to kindness and to justice. Let me try to model myself after Ruth in my own commitment to be the best Jonathan I can be. Finally, honor the memory of Ruth Bader Ginsburg by committing yourself to her holy project, the fundamental goal of true equality. In an interview a few years ago with the Stanford University student newspaper, the young reporter asked Justice Ginsburg, "At what point does a people know that its citizens exist on the same playing field?" Justice Ginsburg replied, "When every boy and every girl in our land grows up thinking that he or she could be whatever his or her God-given talents enable that child to be, and not be held back by any artificial barriers. At that point, we'll know we've arrived." Zecher tzadeket livracha, the memory of the righteous, is a blessing.